And greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion. As you can tell from the title up there, I'm continuing my trek through the episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond. We've gone through almost 8 seasons, or a couple episodes away from entering the 9th and final season. This, of course, is episode 20 of the 8th season. This is Blabbermouths. And as you can tell from the title, this is one that involves the concept of gossiping, but gossiping within the family where all the info is translated from different individuals in a different fashion. We got brothers talking with their father, we got spouses talking to each other, we got daughters-in-law talking to mothers-in-law, and every which way. And it all starts with a dream that Ray had. Now, based on the writers, this looks like one of the episodes that they brought in outside writers to write, because I'm looking at the people who wrote this one. One of them is Leslie Cavanagh, and Leslie only wrote one episode in the previous season, and that was The Shower. This season, the 3 episodes, Slave, Blabbermouths, and then the following episode, The Model. And then next season, Leslie will write 3 as well, Debra's Parents, which is one of the ones from that season I remember, Tasteless Frank, and the finale. So 3 episodes that send out to me. Of course, Leslie doesn't have a lot of writing credits. I don't think I've gone over Leslie before, but it looks like it's all like sitcom related stuff. We got Dream On from '93, Mad About You, or Write Already, Maggie writers. After this, you only write Penelope, and then a short from over 10 years ago called Beautiful. Hasn't done anything since. The other writer is a little bit more prolific, but sadly he passed away back in 2020. That was Jeremy Stevens. He wrote episodes of Electric Company, show I know but I've never watched, Coach, America Tonight, The Adventures of Mr. Clown, Dear John, Rhythm and Blues. Wrote 2 episodes of Saturday Night Live back in '81, and of course 15 episodes of this show. And Jeremy has written all throughout the show, so it looks like this is either somebody who got pulled into the writer's room and only did a couple ones, or one of the outside ones that came in. And I'm checking, looks like 3 per, well 4, they only got 1. Season 5 looks like the only season this guy didn't write for. And looks like as the seasons went on, it was given us. Jeremy also wrote The Bird, so now that's kind of interesting that Jeremy wrote the ones that stood out. I think this late in the show, it's usually going to be the outside ones that are going to help a little bit more. Next season, he also helped with the finale, and then one called The Home. I'm going to click on that real quick because the title's not standing out. Oh, that's the premiere. Okay, I checked. The title's just not standing out, but the concept is. Now, this episode starts, just like a bunch of episodes starts, with a conversation. And in the course of it, we find out that Ray recently has had an interesting dream. And the reason why this sounds like an interesting dream is because this is a conversation between Debra, Amy, and their friend Linda. You know, Bernie and Linda. They're talking about stuff in their family, more stuff involving their husbands. And Ray's recent dream is brought up where he's dreaming like he's trying to catch a choo-choo train, and it turns out it's a dream about him as a kid and he's unable to catch it, so he's talking in his sleep. He's like, choo-choo gone. And everyone thinks it's cute because, as Linda puts it, there's always something cute about that little boy thing that grown men have. Which, of course, to end the prologue thing, we get a little fun little moment where Frank walks in with one shoe and he's asking where Marie is. So that cuteness does kind of have a cutoff point and an age limit. At least once they start to become like a dirty old grown man, it's not as cute anymore. Now, this whole thing about the dream spreads throughout the family, and eventually Ray starts getting ribbed by Frank and Robert about it. It's like, choo-choo gone. They keep ribbing him over, and Ray's hating it. Like, why the frick are they doing this to me? This is not funny at all. So Ray decides he's going to do what he does best. He's going to lie to get out of it. Or he tells them a different story than what he told Debra. Whereas he told Debra the story about the choo-choo train, he tells them that it was a dirty dream about someone from the school back when they were in school named Choo-Choo Chaleski. As Robert puts it, a woman among girls. So, looks like someone that physically blossomed early on and stayed that way to where all the teenage guys are like, Oh my. That type of person. The way he describes a dream, he doesn't get too graphic, obviously, because, network TV. But he says enough to where, as Frank puts it later, I was actually proud of you. You were dreaming like a man. Something Frank would totally say. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit with that, but you can imagine once that disseminates through the family, Debra is none too happy, and neither is Marie. But before we get there, we find out a couple interesting things about the other women in the Barone family. We find out apparently that Amy pees when she laughs too hard. And Marie, despite how she always is talking about homemade cooking always being superior to stuff you can already get, which in certain situations that's going to be the case, but in other ones, if you don't have the time to really make everything from scratch, especially if it's something that takes a long time, unless you're really caring about like sodium content and stuff like that, why bother? Well, that comes up here a bit, but not that whole thing about sodium content, but the whole thing about which one is better, because apparently Marie does cheat sometimes, because sometimes the sauce in her marinara, that is not homemade. It is out of a can, ragu, as they put it. Which, for Marie, that's a big accusation and a big deal, because of how she presents herself as a 100% homemade chef. An accusation of using ragu, ooh, yeah. And with how we see Debra react to it when Ray tells her, she's like, ooh. Especially all the crap that Marie has given Debra over the years, she is justified in being all giddy and joyful about it. Well, the whole thing I mentioned a little bit ago about Ray and all that, you can already guess where this is going to go. Especially if the photo I'm going to use as a thumbnail is the one I end up using. She confronts Ray and is like, choo-choo Chaleski. And it turns into a whole big argument going back and forth about gossiping and who's right and doing what and why should we talk about this. And it all ends up with a lot of them turning on Amy because of where things go, especially when one story about Ray comes up, which this definitely speaks more of a retcon to me, considering how the last couple episodes of the previous season were. But with how Ray defends it, I can kind of see how it makes sense, especially if it was at a moment where it kind of looked like there was a doubt with the marriage. And that was apparently before the wedding. At one point, Ray told Debra that Robert and Amy's marriage didn't have a chance in hell. Which, considering how we saw the previous marriage implode and how they've been on again, off again, all throughout the relationship, I can kind of see where Ray's coming from, but at the same time, it's like, Ray, you're the one that helped your brother pull this stuff off with a lot of the episodes. You stood up for them. You're the one that basically said no good can come from family. You're the one that helped him with the proposal, and we're really congratulating him, and amongst all of the other stuff that's gone on, all the shenanigans. So for you to say that, it feels a little out of character for Ray to say that at this point, but depending on the context of when he said it, because they never elaborate when, the specific point, I can see him saying it, especially if it's the way he described it, or it was like something to get Debra to be quiet or something, which I could definitely see Debra reacting very negatively to Ray having said that, and I could see Amy being mad that Ray would have said that, but also not wanting to say anything about it, because, she's nice. I get it. There are times where you want to pick and choose your battles, and something like this, definitely not one of them, especially with how we see Robert react when he hears that. Now, as I mentioned before about sitcom writing and status quo, a lot of this is kind of reset at the end of the episode, where they all make good with each other and apologize and all that. But the fact that they all turn on Amy for a brief moment when they makes it look like she's the one that started all this crap, it's like, she's not the one that started all this gossiping thing. Technically, within the context of the episode, if anyone started it, it's freaking Ray. And to even blame Amy for a lot of the stuff, it's like, if we're going to blame anyone for being a super big gossip when it comes to the family harmony, to put for a phrase from another episode, it's freaking Marie, if we're going to be honest about it. She's the one that always wants to get her way. She's the one that always holds on to stuff. I mean, didn't she save Debra's letter like she was going to use it as evidence later on, like in a murder trial? But overall, it is a fun episode. There's not really much else to talk about it without giving super big spoilers, but this is one of those episodes that I don't want to give super big spoilers about. I mean, other than the general premise and some of the stuff I brought up, you get the point. Although I do want to touch on the epilogue, because it does stem from one bit of dialogue where Debra mentions something that Maria told her in confidence, and that was one time Frank had come into the bedroom with a toupee for her. And in the end, they have Frank walk in a toupee, and I don't know how long ago it was, or Frank decided to get a younger toupee to make himself look hip for her, but he's walking at it, it's like, oh, Peter Boyle with the toupee. Now, as he walked in, it kind of reminded me a little bit of my late grandfather. He's been gone over 10 years, because he did also have a toupee. I mean, his was a little bit more shaded naturally, so it didn't stand out as much, and if you didn't know he's wearing a toupee, you might not know. Like, I didn't know until I was told, but just looking at it, just the way he walked in kind of reminded me of that. Maybe it's also because my grandfather was a Korean veteran, like the character Frank is supposed to be. So maybe that's similar walk and stride. But it just shows Peter Boyle sells it pretty well. And not really much else to say about it. It'd probably end up on the VHS list, but that's going to depend on when I look at the whole list of episodes and put it on there. But it's definitely in the running. Definitely one you should not skip when it comes to this season, or at least that's how I feel about it. If you don't, or you want to say one in the comment section, go ahead. Just keep it respectful, like always. We're in the home stretch now. Only a couple more episodes in this season, then we're out of here. The next episode is one I do remember, but that was from the DVD one, of course. This is one where it seems like a lot of shows, we always get an episode sooner or later with a theme like this, and that involves scammers. And that, of course, is going to be The Model. Poor Robert. Till next time, everybody.